Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Thursdays with the Starr Center. I'm Adam Goodhart, director of the Starr Center. And for those of you who have been coming to more than one of these weekly events, you may have noticed that we're kind of not exactly following any one theme here. It's a series that's as eclectic and surprising and curious as the Starr Center itself is, and as eclectic and surprising and curious as the people who make up the Starr Center are. Part of our concept for this series, when we decided to give it a try this semester, was that different members of the Starr Center staff would get to curate events that would give them a chance to explore and highlight some issues and topics that they are particularly passionate about. So 2 weeks ago, you may have enjoyed the event with filmmaker Stanley Nelson, and that event was a labor of love for our digital historian and archivist, Jasmine Castro, who is a film historian. Last week was the Steve Kornacki event, and that was kind of my baby because I love politics and journalism, as many of you probably know. And this week we have an event that's curated by Amber McGinnis. Amber is our Assistant Director for Communications and Outreach at the Starr Center. She joined us just a few months ago, coming to us from Chesapeake College, where she was a professor of communications and chair of the honors program. At the Starr Center, you have probably been, you've probably seen her already sending out email blasts and making all kinds of connections to our community on and off campus. Amber, in addition to being an expert in communications, is also a deeply rooted, longtime resident of the Eastern Shore with family roots that go back centuries in Dorchester County and a deep interest in that history. But Amber is also very interested in the way that the Eastern Shore's demographics have been changing from what some people might think of them as having been for centuries past. How this area, although perhaps rural Maryland is not what many people think of when they think of immigration in contemporary America, how this area, in fact, has very much its own immigration story waiting to be told. So Amber was kind enough to pull together a terrific group of guests for this evening who are going to share some of those immigration stories from the Eastern Shore, a topic that's especially timely, not just because of all of the news, of course, that we're seeing with all kinds of national discussions and debates about immigration, but also the fact that this year, as you know, concludes the decennial census, the every once in a decade census of the United States. So it's a time when America generally sort of looks around and assesses who are our neighbors, who are our fellow citizens, and that's something that we're doing here on the Eastern Shore as well. So thank you, Amber, for your work in pulling together tonight's program. And moderating this evening's program will be another newly arrived colleague at the Starr Center, rather newly arrived colleague, Casey Stewart. Casey is the Assistant Director for Programs and Experiential Learning, and he will be introducing the speakers and moderating the discussion. So Casey, it's all yours.
Thanks, Adam. And thank you to everyone for joining this week's edition of Thursdays with the Starr Center. It's my great pleasure to be part of tonight's important conversation on immigration. Immigration is one of, if not the most contentious issues in American politics today. Despite this, many of us lack a complete picture of the immigrant experience. Tonight's program, Shifting Shores, Immigration Stories, and Maryland's Eastern Shore, will highlight the stories beyond the headlines and behind the numbers. In other words, we will explore questions: who are immigrants? Where do they come from? And why do they come here, to this place? Along the way, you'll hear stories of struggle and triumph while learning about the diverse and vibrant communities that populate our region. I'm delighted to be joined tonight by three panelists who will help us to understand multiple dimensions of the immigrant experience here on the Eastern Shore. Matthew Peters is Executive Director of the Chesapeake Multicultural Resource Center, a position he's held since 2012. He'll be discussing recent demographic shifts on the Eastern Shore and what's driving them, as well as clarifying some important terminology. Ingrid Diaz will be telling her own immigration story, including her life as a child in Quilco, Guatemala, her journey north, her entrance into high school without any English, and her path to becoming a citizen. But I'll let her tell you about that. Isabella Santinelli is a current senior at Washington College, majoring in political science and Hispanic studies. She'll be discussing her work as a legal intern with Midshore Pro Bono, translating for and assisting immigrants as they navigate the legal system. After our panelists speak, we invite the audience to contribute to our conversation by either writing questions in the chat or by raising your hand. And with that, I will now turn things over to our first speaker, Matthew Peters. Matthew?
All right, thank you all for having me here today. I'm just going to open up and try a new type of presentation. This is a PowerPoint presentation that's available on Zoom, so you'll see my floating head around. As was mentioned, I run the Multicultural Resource Center here in Easton, Maryland. We've been running this center since 2012. Our mission is to work directly with the immigrant population here on the Eastern Shore, and we provide a whole host of direct and indirect services. So over the years, we've been called upon to talk and share, and we want to as much as we can. What goes on in our office and the stories we hear with the rest of the world. And we've been doing this pretty consistently for the past few years with many groups. So I'm happy to share with you tonight kind of what, as an organization, trends we've seen, stories we've heard since 2012, and kind of share with you the numbers that we work with. But before we get started, I mean, as I do talk a lot about immigrants and immigration, I find it always necessary to kind of set ground rules. As Casey mentioned, this is the most polarized subject to discuss or not discuss in America, but we need to, and we need to kind of get tools and skills on how to start talking and addressing. So, you know, news stories we hear, things we see on Facebook, things we hear on NPR, things I'll be talking about tonight. You know, numbers can be used to hurt, to educate, to polarize. So tonight's discussion, I think everyone is in agreement, is about educating. It's not about polarizing the issue more. It's not about gaining allies or any type of political gain. I think all of our content tonight that we'll present to you is about educating. So we want to make sure we do our best, and as we have discussions, to keep it the tone educational. So things I see a lot in a news story, and things I learned at least in high school, was, you know, listening for the difference between a connotation and a denotation. So you know, we'll try and use as much denotive type of phrases to make sure we are focusing on educating and not adding to any of targeting or the polarizing types of phrases. So you might hear illegal thrown around. Of course, we'll use terms such as undocumented. We know the debate right now of taking out the term alien from all of our literature in government. We'll refer to people by their nationality. Criminal, of course, is thrown around. None of these are criminal acts. Maybe they're unauthorized. We hear the numbers. We hear terms like surge and wave, and you'll see numbers tonight that I'll present to you. Sure, I mean, you can throw any type of emotional type of term towards a number. We'll see things of increase, decrease, and cycles as we go through the discussion tonight. Also, what we want to keep in mind is as we tell our stories and things we know, and as you know, when Ingrid gets to present her personal story, remember, these are meant to educate. So we steer away from any type of stereotypes. We're not suggesting everyone in a group is the same. We are basing these on facts, stories. They're meant to educate, these generalizations, and keeping in mind, each and every immigrant story is completely unique, and it has its own set of hundreds of variables and amazing things associated with it. What we'll try to do tonight is just kind of highlight some generalizations and trends to help us better understand and start thinking about what the immigrant story is right now on the Eastern Shore. So two things when we talk about the immigrant community. Here on the Eastern Shore, I see kind of two distinct communities. Some similarities, but I do find them very distinct. So we work with primarily the immigrant community. There is an incredibly vibrant and diverse migrant community here on the Eastern Shore as well. I've worked with, we don't work directly with migrants, we work directly with immigrants, but migrants, when they transition to immigrants, we've met people that have come to work temporarily in Ocean City, people from the Philippines or from Eastern Europe, all over the world, on agricultural fields here from Latin America, and any types of migrants, even with tourism or anything like that. Immigrant, of course, is someone where this is their final destination. Migrants might be coming through, might be here temporarily. They are an important part of our economy and our, but tonight's talk is really focusing on the immigrant story, the one where the Eastern Shore ends up being the final destination for these journeys. And as we talk about this, you'll see from our numbers, it can quickly be interpreted Hispanics and or Latinos as being part of the major force of our immigrant story here on the Eastern Shore. And keeping in mind, Hispanic really is just a term for an ethnicity, meaning someone that associates with the Spanish language, the Spanish culture, and the term Latino meaning somebody from Latin America. But even in those two terms, the diversity that we know and see from working with this community, the richest people I know on this planet are Hispanic, as well as the poorest. I know Hispanics that are white, Hispanics that are Black, all in between. So it is a very incredibly diverse culture when we say Hispanic and or Latino. But we do say Hispanic and Latino, and we do measure that. As Casey mentioned, we measure it in our census, we measure it in schools, we measure it in our hospitals, and the numbers I use to better understand the story here, and that I find to be most accurate to reflect our communities, are school records. So you can go to MD report card, Maryland report card, to get these numbers to kind of see these trends. So I've highlighted the ones in our region: Talbot County, Caroline County, Queen Anne's, and Dorchester. I included Kent just to kind of, for Washington College, but Kent doesn't really have too much of a story yet. But we do see this trend, right? Starting in the year, for example, I'll pick on Talbot County because that's where we work closely with. In the year 2001, there was probably about 89 or 90 or so students in total that self-identified as Hispanic Latino. And we see this story evolve over time, where it becomes very significant. We're now in 2020, we're almost at 1,000 students in Talbot County alone that self-identify as Hispanic. So it's a very significant story. I think a lot of times, because we don't see it or talk about it enough, we don't quite understand how significant these stories really are in keeping our communities together. Which is why we want to present these numbers in a healthy way. In the community I work with here in Easton, as you can see, we also can measure it by percentage of students. So when we started as an organization in 2012, wow, our elementary school here was 20% Hispanic, and now in 2020 it's 40% Hispanic. So we do serve a more significant role in our schools, serving as interpreters, running programs. We run a whole diverse set of youth programs to try and help integrate Hispanic youth and even youth that don't speak English very well into our youth programs here on the Eastern Shore. Now, of course, when we say the term Hispanic, again, like I said, that's very diverse. So we've worked with over 4,500 clients here on the Eastern Shore. So a very large number of immigrants. I've worked with immigrants from 59 different countries. But when we look at our client base, and this is fairly current, about 57% of the clients that I work with come from Guatemala, followed by Mexico, 15%, Honduras, 11%, Haiti, El Salvador, Venezuela, and Pakistan. So those are still and have continued to be, since we've really started operation, our top 6 or 7 immigrant clients that we see. So even though we're very diverse, we have dozens and dozens of countries represented here on the Eastern Shore for immigration, the vast majority do come from Mexico and the Northern Triangle of Central America. Now, when I'm asked to kind of explain this trend and growth here on the Eastern Shore from the year 2000 to today, my journey actually with the immigrant community had started back right before the year 2000, and I lived in Guatemala from 1999 to 2012. Oh my God. So I saw a lot of the story living in Guatemala and not knowing anything here in the United States up until 2012 when I came into this community. And Ingrid will correct me a bit, but this is kind of my generalization when I look at these stories. And most of the stories I hear from 2000 to 2010 is really one of this opportunity, wanting to partake in a modern society, wanting to get their family back home in Central America, to have electricity, to have running water, to go to school, all these things that really weren't in place before the year 2000 in most of Guatemala and Central America. There was this passion to get the resource to do that, which is money. You can't have electricity with corn or beans. You can't pay tuition with that. You need to get money to pay for that. So there was really this look for opportunity, economic opportunity, so you can participate in a modern society. A little later, when you hear some of the stories Isabella works with, you'll see that a lot of these stories really aren't about coming for opportunity, but they're escaping misery, poverty, extortion, violence. And because this story, especially for Central America, has been going on for 20 years at least, in a lot of families, families have been separated for this period of time. So there's a real urgency to reunite with family. And so weekly, as we hear new stories coming in, and every day we welcome even new people into our community. So this is still an unfolding story. These are a lot of the reasons that we hear when we ask, why here to America? I'm very fortunate tonight to be able to kind of, for the first time for me at least, end my conversation and pass it on to a young woman that we were fortunate enough to meet right when she came into the country back in, she'll probably correct me too, I think it was 2014. We were working with the school system and got some money to do some after-school program at the high school. We were able to work with Ingrid Diaz, who's going to speak about her journey right now, and really kind of highlight a lot of these stories just through her story. It's an amazing one. I know she might not think it's too unique, but I find it fascinating and incredibly unique. Her journeys through the school system here in Easton, Maryland, and then becoming a citizen. I think in February she became a citizen, and we're so happy to announce she'll be working for us full-time starting on Monday. So we really are excited, and I'm so fortunate to be able to have her share her story with you guys tonight. I know she's this is probably the first time for her to do this. It's not comfortable to do, I know, but I think it's exciting. I think it's something I want to hear. We need to hear a lot more of these personal stories, and linking them to kind of this bigger story. So I'm going to end my part for now, and Casey's going to put up some photos, and Ingrid will explain her journey.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for for this opportunity and having me here to here with you guys. It is in fact the first time I talk like or do like a Zoom meeting like this, but I am very glad to be here and share my story with you. Okay, so I am going to start by showing you the place where I grew up in. So as you can see, those the houses that you see there, that's where I used to live. And the picture in the middle shows how the little village where I used to live looked like. So okay, I grew up in this village, which was called Canival, and it belonged to the municipality of Cuilco, which is part of Huehuetenango, which is the city, and then in Guatemala, right? So growing up, it was very tough. We were not that fortunate enough to have like a lot of money. So we did fortunately have something to eat, and that was thanks to the crops that we would grow, such as corn, like some vegetables that we were able to grow, and yeah. So and then I don't know if you see, but kind of like towards the end in the middle, and the picture in the middle, that's where we would go to school. You can barely see it, but that's where, and then we would have to walk like all the way there to be able to get to school. But that was my life there. And then I don't know if I'm actually not sure how to switch to the next pictures. Someone could help me here. Okay, yes. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about like the things that go on in Guatemala, just like in any other Central American country. So the first picture that you see there, that's from the Stan hurricane. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it hit us like in 2005. It was a very tough time. Many people lost their houses and everything. Everything they had. It was a very shocking and scary time for us as children. We were just like scared and not knowing what was going on, because we had never been through something like this before. But it was very scary, but we like eventually we got through it. And so where I used to live, I don't know if you see that river there. The whole village was like, the lower part of the village was flooded due to the heavy rain that we were getting during that time. It was a very scary time, but we thankfully with the help of God, we got through it. Some people were able to get back on their feet. Some of them were not. Like right after they had, it took some time because they just lost everything. But that's what happened during that time. I don't know if we can switch the pictures. Okay, so here, that's where I start. So in Guatemala, we don't have like a whole lot of opportunities. Speaking of educational opportunities or like economical opportunities. So the time or the day that I decided to start my journey to the United States was right after I finished up with my what we call in Guatemala high school, which is like 9th grade here in the United States. I wanted to go to to keep going with my studies and like go to college and get a career. But I wasn't able to do that due to the lack of money that we had. So I was hearing stories from neighbors and some other people that would say that if you would come to the United States, there you could find like a lot of opportunities. And then it was going to like be kind of like easier for you to get a career or grow economically and educationally. So that got into my mind. So I wanted to look for more opportunities because I wanted to keep on with my studies. So I started my journey. I told my family one day that I was going to leave the place where I grew up in, and my family too. It was very hard for me to do, but I had to do it. So this one morning, I don't know if you can see like the picture in the middle, like the upper middle one. I had gotten a car and traveled to this border, which is called Amatenango de la Frontera. It was the border between Mexico and Guatemala, and it was like about on a car. It was like at about around 1 hour or so away from where I used to live in car. So then I got to Amatenango de la Frontera, and then I had to ride a different bus that would take me to this other place, which was called Comalapa. There, when I got there, I had to wait for a different other bus that it would take me to the place called Altar Sonora. And then so I waited there for about like a day, and then this next morning we did ride a bus that would take me to Altar Sonora. So we went, and that's kind of like the picture on of the bus that you can see there. That's kind of like giving you an idea of what it looked like. So that's where I got on that bus, and then the trip was a bit scary because I would hear from some other people that were like on that same bus, and they will be like well, letting us know or telling us to be careful because the immigration officers from Mexico would like pick on someone and just try to take your money because you would probably look different, or I don't know, but that's what they would that's what they would tell me. And then I was scared at that time, but so we started that the ride on the bus, and it took us like about like 2 or 3 days to get to Altar Sonora. And so we went, I believe, or I kind of remember that we were stopped by the immigration officers actually like 2 or 3 times. And then on one of those times I got picked on. So they were asking me some questions, and then they asked me to step out of the bus. So I did, and they started asking me other questions, and I thankfully I did answer, or I gave them the right answer. So I was good. They tried to trick me because they were coming to me with that intention of getting money from me, but that didn't work for them, thankfully. So they let me back into the bus. So I went back in, and I was so relieved because nothing happened. And then we kept going, and then I believe that was like a day before we got to the final destination, which was Altar Sonora. But so, and then once I got to Altar Sonora, I was taken to this house where I had to wait for the person that was going to guide me through the desert. And then I spent about a day there. It was just me and 2 other people that were waiting as well, but they were gonna live like on a different time, or I'm not sure what was their story, but I waited for him, and then he came like the next day, I believe. And then he said to go out and get and buy some food, and also some blankets because it was going to be cold. So I did go out, and then there was this other person that would come with me, because I didn't know like where to go to get those things. So we went and got those things, and then he said that we were going to leave the next morning. So we did, and then once okay, so right after that we got on a car, I remember, and that car was going to take us like closer to where we would walk through the desert. So it took us like about, I remember we got there like at about dawn, or a little bit after then. But I remember it was getting darker. And he said that we were going to have to stay the night there. And I was very scared because I had never been out of my, like away out of my house, or sleeping out like that. But I told myself to be strong, and that we were going to get through it. So it was very, very cold, I remember, and so cold that we had to like get together, kind of like warm ourselves. It was just like it was another young person, and then me and the guide that was going to take us, the person that was going to guide us. So and then we left the next morning, like really early in the morning, and we were just going by whatever he told us to do. So we went, and then we crossed, and then we saw some immigration officers coming, and then they picked us up, and then they took us to this detention center. Where they put us on a like separate rooms, but it was a very cold room, I remember. And then there, that's when I got to contact my brother, which was here. He didn't know I was coming. But then I told him that I was coming, or trying to come to where he was. And then I believe he talked to them. I'm not sure what happened after that, because I didn't know anything in English, so I'm not sure what they were saying. But I believe they spoke to him. So after that, they took us to a different, yes, as you can see, the first picture right there, where there are like a lot of people. That's where they put us. That was the cold room that I was talking about. And then after that, they took us to a different detention center, and then we did some paperwork, and then they took us to that in the picture in the middle. That's where that's one of the shelters where they would take us. So that's where I went, and then that's where I waited for my brother and the lawyer that I was assigned to like get all of the paperwork straight, so that I could come to him. And then the picture that you see right after, that's my brother and me, and that's when I came to where he was. And then so after that, I got on, they put me on a plane, which took me to I believe it was Baltimore, where my brother had to pick me up. And then right after then we went to eat, and then we got home, and then he was talking to me about having me going to school, and then I said, great, I would love to. And then the picture that you see there, like the first picture, I'm right there with two of my teachers, and that's when I believe that was like my fifth day of school. Starting high school, when I went there, it was going to be like my first day. I was really scared because I did not know any English at all. I was scared because I wasn't sure how it was going to go. And then I actually went in this class, and there was someone that spoke English and Spanish. It was a classmate, and then he was the one who helped me, like kind of like tell me what the teacher was saying, or giving me instructions about my like locker and the classes that I was going to have. So right after after that, I went to this ESL class where which that's the first picture, that's where it was taken. So that was my teacher. She spoke some Spanish, so that helped. And then she was telling me about like how everything worked there, because in Guatemala you only stayed in one room. You didn't have to go like to any other classes or anything, but here it was different. So that's what she was telling me about. And then so I said okay. And then that high school was really big for me because I had never seen anything like that before. So I did get lost a couple of times because I was just new there. And then there were some other people that helped me, so that was good. And then my next class, I believe it was English 9. When I got there, the teacher started talking and everything. So I just went inside and then sat, and then I was just listening, like trying to kind of like understand, but I couldn't because I didn't know any English. And then so she was giving some homework and everything, but I'm gonna so after that, it was very hard, a hard time, but I got through it, thank God. And then that's the picture where I graduated from high school. And then I have accomplished a lot of things. And then not too long ago, I also got a car. That's the picture that you could see there. And then like some time before, I had applied for my citizenship, just like Matthew told you guys. And that's the picture right there where I was able to finally get it, thank God. And I am just so very thankful for the opportunity that was given to me, like having me here. And thank you guys for having me here this afternoon with you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Such powerful words, such amazing images. I can't express enough how meaningful it is to have you share that story. Thank you. Next up, we have Izzy. Izzy, are you ready to go?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So hi, my name is Isabella Santinelli, or you can call me Izzy like Casey did. That's a very common name I go by. I'm a current senior at Washington College, and I've been working for Midshore Pro Bono, which is a legal nonprofit located on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I've been working for them for about close to a year and a half. It'll be when I graduate. I started in February of 2020. So that was right before the pandemic hit, and it's definitely been over a year. I think one of the main things I wanted to share with you guys and talk about is the way that the Starr Center has been so wonderful in connecting Washington College students to this organization and getting them involved and educating them about the immigration process and the ways that it impacts the Eastern Shore and kind of the US right now. I was basically approached by one of my Spanish professors in the fall of my junior year about this opportunity. She came up to me and communicated that since I'm a Spanish speaker, it's my second language, that she would be comfortable asking me to join this organization and working for them. And I did it with another girl who has since graduated, but she was also from Puerto Rico. And we both started interning there, only about 8 hours a week, doing kind of piece and parcel translations for majority Spanish speaking clientele, because we do serve majority Spanish speakers. And I kind of came in with no legal experience, no background. I don't even have my undergraduate yet, so I'm definitely not a legal professional, but I've also been able to learn this secondhand, especially immigration law, from working one-on-one now with my boss, who's from Barcelona and is the attorney. I, like many of you, had no idea there was such a vibrant and large immigrant population located on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And I was very pleasantly surprised to learn that, and that I could put my Spanish skills to use and also learn about it. I had always liked learning about immigration in school. However, serving as an intern at Midshore Pro Bono has kind of given a new duality to my courses and my coursework. And I think it's a really unique opportunity the Starr Center has provided for students just like me who are poli-sci and Hispanic studies, interested in both the policy and the Spanish component of it, and then also seeing it in real life. And I'll kind of reiterate what Matt and Ingrid were talking about. Their stories are very similar to ones that I work with on a daily basis. I've worked with clients who are not yet old enough to walk, and some who are over 60, 70, 80 years of age, who have been living here for most of their life and just want to get like legal status of some sort. I've met with clients from all over Central America, South America, Africa, Asia. It's not really any limits to the where these immigrants come from. And we service everyone as long as they live on the Eastern Shore, and some even outside of that. And I've learned so much from hearing their stories. It's one thing to write about immigration or immigration policy in a paper as a Washington College student, and it's another to experience it and speak directly with these persons, especially in a time where COVID-19 has kind of not allowed for immersion and learning about these places in a different set where I would have most likely have been. It's allowed me to kind of transport myself to different places and learn different stories, different cultures, different languages, without ever leaving this tiny desk in the corner of my bedroom. I started working in the office for only about a few months or a month and a half before the pandemic hit, and the rest I've been doing from my desk. And it's also highlighted the ways in which I can communicate with others through outreach, social media, phone calls, posters in the town. I work a lot with outreach. I do preliminary intakes, and I also call clients to help prep them for their immigration trials. A lot of the things that Matt talked about, all the statistics and all of the like escaping that he spoke about, is a lot of what I see. A lot of times I work with children who are under the age of 21 who are applying for special immigrant juvenile status, who no longer have their parents with them for a variety of reasons, have underwent severe traumas or violence, and things that I could not fathom. Yeah, I'm older than them. And that's what kind of always struck me, because I consider myself to be fairly young. I'm only 21 years old, and I'm speaking with 13, 14, 15-year-olds who are so much more mature than me and have seen more than I will ever see. And I'm constantly inspired by their stories. And I'm also constantly inspired and constantly grateful to the Starr Center for connecting me to these populations. And I encourage anyone else, any other students, everyone I speak to, every other major that I work with and I take classes with, to look into this experience, because it really has been a unique way to connect the college with these really vibrant immigrant communities that exist, not only in Kent County, but all over the Eastern Shore. And I think that's all I have for you guys today.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. It's so wonderful to hear from students about what they're learning, working with these populations, seeing these kind of issues firsthand. I really appreciate you sharing that experience. Okay, so we've reached the Q&A portion of our session tonight. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. I see that some people are already lighting that up. So let's keep that going. I just have a couple of thoughts that I might kind of start us off with. And you know, I'm so interested, Ingrid, in your story. And one of the things I've been wondering is how welcome have you felt into our community on the Eastern Shore? How welcoming has the Eastern Shore been to you? And then maybe a second part of that question is how can we be more welcoming to immigrants like yourself?
Yeah, so thankfully, by the time where when I got here, the people were very nice to me, and they were patient just like my teachers, the teachers that I had, they were very nice. And I have actually encountered myself with very nice people. I was telling Matt the other day that if someone was being like not nice to me and being mean to me, I actually didn't notice because I didn't speak any English or could understand that. But other than that, thankfully, people have been nice. But I have heard that some other people have been having that they have had like a different experience than me. So some of them have been like not that welcoming to them. But that's just what I have heard. But like I said, with me, it's just different because I believe that God is always looking like over me. So I am thankful for that. But yeah, but you know, everything is changing now. So things are getting kind of like different. So but it's just the way it is.
Thank you. That's great. Matthew, I wanted to kind of circle back to some of those graphs and charts that you were showing us. You know, thinking about the large percentage of Guatemalan immigrants here on the Eastern Shore. And one of the things I've been wondering is how our sort of local demographics compare to the more national story. You know, how unique are we compared to that national story, or how representative are we of that broader story? Can you speak at all to that?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, yeah, interesting enough, obviously, because we are a rural community and because of the uniqueness of just the Eastern Shores, history with population, you know, really didn't even change too much since that bridge was built, as far as I know. We do have a unique kind of demographic here. I gave this presentation at Salisbury University a few years ago, and very quickly someone raised their hand and said, that's not right. I have the data here for Maryland, and most Hispanics come from El Salvador. And I had to say that is correct. You look at Maryland numbers, yes, there's other communities that dwarf even the Guatemalan community, but those are in highly urban areas. I mean, Silver Springs and everything around the DC area. Obviously, we can't compare Eastern Shore to any of those counties. We just don't have the numbers or population. So yes, it's very unique. Our kind of our two kind of main groups here that really do stick out are the Guatemalan community, and interesting enough, the largest minority group in Salisbury is the Haitian community. So they were even given an award last year, or I guess 2 years ago, probably now, by the mayor of Salisbury, recognizing the impact and the numbers of the Haitian community down there. So yes, Eastern Shore, we are still very unique compared to the rest of Maryland. So it really is depending on where you look. Even here on the Eastern Shores, depending where. We have some communities that are as high as 85% Hispanic, and then others that are still at 0% Hispanic. So you got to kind of look around and look at each county, and then within each county, kind of each community, to learn the different makeups of the immigrant community there.
Amazing. That's fascinating. So I've got a question here in the chat from Marcia Landscorner, who asks, what is the status of Daca now? For those who immigrated as children and are now adults, what is the path to citizenship?
So Daca is not a legal status. As we remember, Daca was an executive action taken back in 2012 and Daca stands for Deferred Action of Childhood Arrivals. So that deferred action is referring to their deportation. So it's actually not a legal status. It's just a temporary status that says we won't deport you and we'll let you work. And we have since known this whole kind of generation and group of people as dreamers in DACAs. We know that that was ended by the previous administration and then blocked in courts, and it still could be challenged in a court case, so it could still end if that decision is finalized, so it's still on thin ice. However, obviously now with the new administration that's taken more of a stance to not end this program, right now it still exists. Right now, you can apply again first time, so we're not a large population, but I would say probably a good 2 or 3 dozen people on the Eastern Shore qualify now for DACA and have applied for that. And the path to citizenship is very narrow. It can only really be through maybe some sort of direct family petition if they get married to a US citizen. We were able, through our office, to get our assistant director, who was previously DACA. We found a loophole because somebody had filed a petition for her before the year 2000. And we found that digging through all of her immigration records. Because of that loophole that's written in the law, we were able to sponsor her. But that's a very rare case. So she is now a legal permanent resident and on path to citizenship. But right now, DACA is still on thin ice. It's not a legal status. It's not a done deal. So there's a large number of DACA people still in our communities, dreamers, now with families, extended families that still don't have any concrete answer about their future. So, you know, Midshore Pro Bono and ourselves, we still continually have to, every 2 years now, renew those temporary permissions for these heads of households and these families.
Thank you for that answer. I see a hand raised from Judith Hughes.
Yeah, a question for Ingrid. I don't know if I'm wording this correctly. What was your greatest or most pleasant surprise through your experience in coming to the United States and going through your path for citizenship and being educated there? Do you have anything in particular that was a very pleasant surprise for you that you didn't expect?
I believe, or I would say that the best thing that I would never have like dreamed of is being a U.S. citizen. That was like the main thing. I never thought I was going to be able to get to where I am right now. But I would say that's the main best thing that could ever happen to me.
Well, we are blessed to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So I've got another question in the chat here. This one's from Maria Wood, and this is sort of thinking at the opposite scale of my earlier question about kind of national trends. And she asks, I'm thinking back to the graphs from the first slideshow and curious about Kent County demographics. Did the graph show only documented immigrants?
So for the Kent County, it was based on school data. So obviously Kent County, if you know about the school system there, has a very different story than other counties around it. It's been, you know, not having increased numbers like many other places. So you saw it was kind of flat. The question there is documented immigrants. I mean, again, through our work, immigrants are immigrants. Documented, I mean, most of the immigrants like Ingrid and our assistant director were undocumented for a time, but now they're either documented or even US citizens. So we just measure immigrants and talk about immigrants wherever they are on their path, whether it's with a document, with a legal residence, or even now becoming a citizen. There's no real way for us to know, because maybe today they're undocumented and by 7 o'clock tonight they're documented. It just depends on where they are in their journey and what kind of help they can get from the community and what kind of laws affect their case. Again, each case is very different. So Kent County, again, it's not quite the same story yet, even though I've been working with Kent County Public Schools recently. And we've been having this conversation because there are pockets in Kent County where they're seeing the same trends we've seen in Talbot, Queen Anne's, and Caroline County.
So we're almost wrapped up here. So I've got a question here from Pat Nugent. Oh, Pat, would you like to hop on?
Sure. I was going to ask. Well, just thank you to all the speakers, and for those who really organized the event. It's a really important conversation. I was wondering if folks could speak a little bit to the ways in which kind of the public health crisis over the last 12 months has impacted immigrant communities on the Eastern Shore in unique ways, or possibly similar to the rest of the nation. How has kind of COVID played out within immigrant communities and raised concerns or issues there?
I guess I'll take that question. We do serve our organization as the contact tracers. We are staffed at all the vaccination clinics still, and the testing sites. So our staff is kind of on, right there looking at this. All I can say to this is, nothing has changed because of COVID. So all the things that were existing before, all the disparities, health disparities that existed before, a lot of groups not having access to healthcare or insurance, legal status, systemic racism, language barriers, all those things existed prior to COVID. Now with COVID, all that's really done is just kind of amplified that. So if we know how much we're hurting in COVID, just for a lot of these families, not all, but a lot, you just kind of times it by 2 or 3, because none of those things before have been fixed during COVID. All those disparities still exist. And now you have this to kind of really intensify that. But I can also tell you, the families we work with, and we've been there at funerals through COVID. We've dealt with the deaths here, very hard, but the resilience, right? I think you hear Ingrid's story, the stories that Isabella's heard and will share. There's just this theme of resilience. Hurricanes, Hurricane Stan, poverty, abuse, extortions, you're gonna push through. So I think a lot of this community, just like our communities, United States, you name it, we're gonna get through it, right? Any way we can. I feel more fortunate to work, with the immigrant community, because there is a lot more resourcefulness, a lot more of, a bad situation, you're gonna find a pass through. So it's hurting a lot, the immigrant community. And I think national statistics show that. You can look at local health from our health centers or our health departments. But us on the ground, we're getting through it. And I think we're going to have a good, the immigrant community is going to be resilient through this.
Yeah, Izzy, go ahead.
I can just add something really quickly to that. Something I'm constantly reminded by, like when I speak to clients, because Midshore Pro Bono services specifically low income individuals. We have we always ask for their income, and we kind of vet persons based on how we can serve them on that. And one of the things that I've been brought up is that we've had an increased amount of clients coming forward with loss of income due to COVID. And also I'm reminded that they're not able to have access to any of the stimulus payments or monetary support from the government if they do not have status. And I think that's another way in which we don't consider, because if you're not an undocumented person, and it's also something really interesting to keep in mind in the future.
Yeah, the story coming out of New York State with the hunger strikes and the legislation there is a really interesting one that I've just started to follow there, kind of, Izzy, to pick up on what you were saying.
Okay, so oh, sorry, Adam, do you have something?
Yeah, I was going to ask, I was curious about why it is that the Eastern Shore has such a proportionally large population of Guatemalan immigrants among the people who have come here, even different from the rest of Maryland, from other parts of Maryland. Is that because a lot of those Guatemalan people are from rural communities in their own country and are drawn to rural places like the Eastern Shore, or are there other reasons, or is it simply that a community was established here and people kept coming?
Ingrid, I'll let you tell why your brother chose here.
Okay, well, I would say one of the things is that some like Guatemalan people established in the Eastern Shore, and then the rest kept coming. And some people do have like more family, like a lot. I would say, just like us, in my family, we're like 7 siblings. So there's just like the different, I would say the different amount of family members. So that might be one of the reasons, but yeah, it could be something else, but that's what I can think of.
So when we see the Guatemalans I work with, 90% of them come from 2 general communities. One is the Quilco community, where Ingrid comes from. The other one's called Tacana community. But keep in mind, Ingrid, do you know everybody that grew up in Quilco? No.
I don't know.
Yeah, so even when I travel and I say I'm from Easton, Maryland, they're like, oh, do you know Fred so-and-so? And I'll be like, nope, I have no idea who those people are in Easton. So even though they're coming from the same communities, it's not like everyone knows each other. In fact, it's usually the opposite. But we do see why culture is so important. The language being used, vocabulary, types of food eaten, everything from skin color to even knowing what the word Quilco means is a huge safety net. So I think because some families were established here back in the 90s or even early 80s because of the Civil War is when we can kind of trace back our first Guatemalan immigrants here around the Georgetown area of Delaware. Most came because of the Civil War back in that's really started in the 60s and continued all the way up to 96. And then from there, it just kind of, people knew there was a vibrant Guatemalan community. And if you're looking for a place to call home, you want to be in a place where you feel comfortable and safe and welcomed. So that's part of that story as well. And then as Ingrid said, yes, there's families are large. So that's helping also with the school populations and keeping our schools vibrant. It's because a lot of our immigrant community is still young. Most are between the ages of 25 and 35, having families, and families are keeping our communities and schools and everything going. We know the other story for the Eastern Shore is we're aging, especially here in Talbot County. So it's a kind of a nice balance too to our story here for demographics.
It's so interesting how that theme of chain migration is one that goes throughout American history all the way back to the 1600s when the early immigrants from England were coming to this part of the Eastern Shore from very specific parts of England, especially from the southwestern part of England to the Upper Eastern Shore. And these patterns just repeat with one group after another as they come to America. So thank you for sharing that part of the story.
I have one brief follow-up, forgive me. Is there a part of Quilco culture, food or music or an expression that we should keep our eyes out for on the Eastern Shore and say, oh, that's Quilco culture kind of here on the Eastern Shore? Is there an example?
Ingrid, doesn't your brother play on a football team with a special name? Canibal?
Canibal, yeah. So the village that I grew up in is called Canibal. So that's what you would be looking out for. That's the word.
Yeah, so there's a lot of soccer soccer teams that look like professional soccer teams that play around. And I see it on Facebook all the time, and they go to tournaments, and the one that sticks out is the one that says, I think it's FC Cannibal, they call it. And that word sticks out because I know there's a lot of people here from that Quilco region called Cannibal.
I'm also now curious what Quilco means. Oh,
okay, I actually don't really know. I'm sorry, I would owe that to you, but I will look into it and I'll reach out. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we're over the hour mark, and so I do want to let people get on with their evenings and have dinner and stuff. But just sort of a final question, I want to pick up on something that Izzy was talking about, and that's getting involved. You know, whether you're a student or someone else, a community member, how can we get involved and support immigrants that have come to our region?
Is this a question for me?
It's a question for both you and Matt.
Okay. Well, I think that if you have any kind of language skills and you're a student at Washington College, I'm not sure we have many students on this call right now. We're looking for a replacement, so I'll be graduating in about a month and a half. And I think in any ways, just being accepting to these immigrant communities. I had a really great discussion recently with my professor, Professor Deonda, as we're trying to reconcile a lot of the racial disparities that exist in Chestertown right now and bring together like the institution and the college. I actually talked to Dr. Nugent about this a little while ago too. Professor Deonda made a really great point that while we're keeping our eyes on that, to not lose sight on like the really extensive immigrant communities, especially the Hispanic communities, exist within Chestertown. And she made a really big point saying like how a lot of times these communities feel like they're underserved by Chestertown or like underrepresented. And we need to make a general effort to feel more accepting to those groups is going to make all of the difference. And something that she really emphasized to me. So that's something that I've learned from those who are Chestertown veterans that I can pass on to everyone here, as I've only been in town for 4 years. But I think vocal support and kind of just being there and being inclusive is another great thing. And I'm sure Matt will have more to say on that.
Sure. I mean, there's groups set up all around. You know, we're in Easton, Maryland. We have a fairly diverse staff. A worker from Honduras, Mexico, El Salvador, Pakistan, and now Ingrid from Guatemala joining our crew. So we do a lot of youth programs. So you know, if you want to stay clear of legal stuff, or we run Boy Scout, Cub Scout programs for girls and boys and their families. We run after school programs. We help mentoring. There's lots of mentorship programs in our region, in Caroline County and Talbot County. So connect with them, because again, anything that's working with schools and the youth is working with our immigrant community. So just stay in touch, stay informed. Again, educated. You're going to hear all these terms and words to try and sway you for some reason about what's going on. Take a deep breath. We're doing good. We're fine. Yes, there's difficult stories to listen to, but you know, we're a good community. We're a good nation. We're a good world. You don't get frightened too much about some things you read. There's clear paths, like, you know, to get out of these things. Not so clear paths, but we're all helping each other out. So just keep that in mind, and never be afraid, right? You can always ask. You can always ask Ingrid questions you might not know, but she'd be happy to get to know you, and probably has a lot of questions for you as well. So it's just all about sharing and listening and keeping our mindset. We want to be educated. We want to keep asking. We don't want to not ask because we're uncomfortable or it's awkward, or no, go ahead and ask. It's all right, right? If it comes out weird or sounds weird, but that's going to happen. That's the process, right? When we want to talk about, as Isabella said, race, age, ethnicity, you name it, it's not comfortable. Religion, politics, right? But the more we educate and do talk with all of our neighbors, you know, the more healthy our community will be.
I couldn't agree more. And this has been such an incredible learning opportunity for me, and I'm sure for all of our attendees. I just put in the chat 2 links to where you can support these wonderful organizations, whether you want to donate to support them, whether you want to volunteer, find a way to get involved. You can find more information there. So thank you so much. My warmest thanks to all 3 of our presenters tonight. This has really been an incredible program, really moving. I've learned a lot, and I hope you have too. And with that, have a great night.